Welcome to episode 89 of Sound Pollution featuring the Prospectors, a very cool duo from the Netherlands with a unique sound, and we were totally excited to have them on the show. We are going to be discussing their group dynamic, how they got together, how they came up with their sound, inspirations, favorite composers, and why drummers are so hard to find. They will also be sharing 2 of their tracks with us and discussing the stories behind them. This week, I don't have my wonderful co-host with me, but no worries, your Uncle Brent will return soon. Make sure you click those links below to show these guys some love and affection. Also, we need you to keep downloading and sharing Sound Pollution.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's early.
Yeah, it's like 4 in the afternoon over here, so.
Yeah, I've been up an hour. What part of Germany are you guys in? It says that you're in Germany. Is it wrong?
Yeah, not exactly Germany.
Well, it's more or less German, but it's Dutch.
Yeah.
It's the Netherlands.
Okay. That's actually somewhere I wanted to go.
You should just come to visit Utrecht. It's the best city in the country.
Yeah, and it's the one you will never see on the tourist stuff.
Isn't it funny how that is? It's the best stuff is the stuff that you have to like find out through a friend of a friend of a friend.
What happens with the Netherlands is that people mistake Amsterdam for the entire country.
Right, it's not.
Yeah. But like most tourists they never leave the city. But there's much more out there. So.
What do you like about it?
Utrecht? Well, it's the fourth city of the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. But it sort of has the balance with like a smaller city type city center. So it's not too big, not too massive, but still there's a lot of stuff to do because there are many people living here. So it's sort of that balance between a regular sized city and a big city, I guess.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a center of history as well. I mean, indeed, the size is not it's not the big tourist attraction, so it leaves it kind of unspoiled as well. But there's still a lot of history to be tasted here, which is also something I like about it.
The city was founded 2,000 years ago by the Romans. It was like the northernmost fortress of the Roman Empire. And then later, like around 1400, this is also where the Unie van Utrecht was signed. And like basically the country was started. So yeah, both history and just Dutch history.
So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit about the group?
We're Prospectors, and actually at the moment we're 2 of us. We don't have a drummer as of yet. We've worked with a session guy for the album. We started this band in 2015, if I'm correct. Wanting to explore more different soundscapes than we were used to with the metal bands where we have been involved in at the time. If you are joining.
Yeah, so basically you started out, we want to do something instrumental with just as a 3-piece. Because there's a lot of times when you're at 5 people on stage, like there's constantly so much going on. There's very little room for improvisation or putting your own sort of thing into it. So, for example, if you're a bass player, which I'm not, what
which
else
I
is?
am, yeah.
Okay, I was going to say who plays what. We'll go back to that in a second.
I play guitar and he plays bass and keyboards. But basically, for example, if you're a bass player and you have 2 guitars going all the time and there's continuous blast beats, etc., there's not a lot of room to do anything basically besides just play along. And the same goes if you have 2 guitars, you can't really, besides maybe some lead lines or riffs or whatever, there's not a lot you can do with small variations, stuff like that. So the idea was to have a group with just 3 instruments as a basis, no vocals, to leave a lot more room to experiment, try new stuff. That basically.
Yeah. And well, needless to say, we mostly have a background in black metal, so that's further accelerates the point. So there's not too much space. Depending on what kind of style you do anyway, but. Yeah, it started out as that kind of experiment, and we have been working for quite some years to present finally the album we have out now.
And the name of that album is
Proven Lands.
Awesome. So, how long? So you've been playing together kind of since 2015. How long have you guys been playing music separately? Like, when did you pick up your instruments for the first time?
Well, actually, we've been playing together longer than that in other
Oh,
bands.
sorry.
So I think like from 2020 was the first time
20,
we played in the same band.
2009,
Oh, sorry.
I think.
Yeah, something like that.
2009.
Yeah.
I think we started out in some random black metal outfit.
That's a long time to play together. You guys must feel more like family now than bandmates.
Yeah, kind of. It is, and it always has been in different types of bands as well. Various black metal bands, mostly some death metal and what have you.
By the way, I find it funny that Americans always compare stuff to family.
Yeah, it's a big family
that's
thing.
Something that never happens when you're in the Netherlands.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I noticed it. I just thought I'd you know.
I wonder why that is, though. No, seriously, I've never thought about that.
I don't know. Well, I think maybe, but this is pure speculation. Like in the United States, families stand a little bit further apart from each other.
Yeah, we're far away.
Like, yeah, like within 1 hour's drive, I can visit all my aunts, cousins, everything basically, uncles. Yeah, so that's all within 1 hour drive, and I don't think that's the case for most families. So
yeah, I've heard that about Europe too. Like you can drive out of the country in like less than a day. Yeah, and here to see my dad, I have to get on a 7-hour plane trip.
Yeah,
it's insane.
That's unimaginable for especially for Dutch people. Yes.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it. But I mean, but my dad lives where it's really expensive, so it's just not happening. But yeah, we have to fly.
Well, that's why Americans emphasize family more than.
Yeah.
Huh. We've just had a whole. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Get back to the music. I apologize. It's so early. It's still early.
No, go on with the tangents. I like them.
When did each of you start playing music? Not together, but just when did you start playing music initially?
Oh, that has to be a long time ago already. I think I was 8 or something when I started, and I actually started with keyboards, with synths, and I grew bored with that, and then got a guitar, later a bass guitar, and so on and so forth. And only a few years past, I rediscovered synthesizers actually. So yeah, quite a long time. It always has been at some point. Well, at most points in my life, it has been a part of what I do, just playing music and discovering, new instruments to play, I guess. But bands, yeah, that started a bit later. Actually, I think 2008 or something, when I was when I was a year or 18 or something like that. But only when I started playing in bands. Before that, I was just happy to be in my sleeping room and just playing myself.
I started when I was like 6 or 7 years old, playing classical at first, classical guitar. I switched to electric when I was like 12, and then when I was 18, I had my first serious band, more or less serious. At the time, Welshmets. It grew to be more serious, let's put it like that. And like Matthias also said, like it's been a part of my life ever since.
So how many years altogether have you each been playing? I'm not trying to make you say your age. I'm just trying to figure out for the listeners how long you've
Well, I started in 1997 when I was 6 or 7, so that's like 15 years now.
Oh wow, that's a long time on an instrument, actually.
I'm bad at calculating 25 years.
Like he's like, I'm just taking some of that away.
So yesterday I've been putting together kitchen cabinets all day, and then I went off, and then this morning I was putting kitchen cabinets again, and then I was playing squash, and I'm tired. So maybe if I'm saying ridiculous stuff, don't play.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's fine.
For me,
I've been awake for an hour, so don't feel bad.
All right. No, but like around 25 years. Yeah.
Actually, it's the same for me. I'm 2 years older, and I started 2 years later. But for me, it always have been different instruments throughout the time. So I think Michiel was more focused solely on guitar for that entire time.
Okay, so why did you guys get together to make the Prospect? What was the thought behind that? Did you just want to jam, or was there just no, I want to do this specific thing? How did it
Well,
happen?
it sort of started out with like there's this American band, Built Octopus. Do you know it?
No.
Okay, but like we found out about them and we were really excited about it.
Okay.
And then we were sort of like trying, let's try to make something as weird as that. And then we sort of wrote one thing, like a minute and a half maybe. And then after that, for a while, we didn't really do anything. And then after a while, it was like, let's try to do something like that again. And then sort of changed the style a bit. And then throughout the years, I mean, as Matthias said, we started in 2015. Quite a long time to take to write one album. So throughout the years, we sort of changed the style a bit, made it more our own thing. And that's basically how it started. So it was without any thought or idea behind it, just like, this is a cool band. Let's try to sort of experiment, try something similar. And then we wrote one little thing. And then from that, the rest just followed, basically.
Yeah,
so,
well, I think there was some kind of incentive, at least in the sense that we both knew from each other that we liked music that was a bit out there, a bit different, and some 20th century classical composers, stuff like that. That most of our other bandmates in our bands at the time didn't like. So that was kind of what maybe it might not have been the exact incentive to it, but it kept it going, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was this shared interest that that we could eventually push into the music as well.
Yeah, so at some point we sort of decided like, okay, this is going to be more than just a random thing. Let's actually try to make it a band. And then we sort of discussed like, okay, what do we want to do with it? And usually when you have like 4 or 5 people in a band, there's always one person saying, I don't like this, because the more people you get together, the bigger the chance that somebody won't like something.
For sure.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So basically we said like as a starting point, so this band's about experimentation, trying new stuff. So let's just be open to anything. And if we really, really try to make it something and still is shitty, then we scratch it. But in principle, we try to be open for everything. So that's sort of the starting point when we decided to be a band. Like, okay, if I listen to something that Matthias doesn't like and it somehow ends up in music in some way, he'll try it, I hope, to have an open mind and sort of try to make something out of it. And the same is the reverse. So
yeah.
That's an important starting point. Yeah. So yeah,
indeed. There are quite a lot of types of music that's to just piggyback on this example, or with an example actually. For instance, all those minimalists. I didn't quite like them. This is very much into minimalist composers, and we work through music, and indeed, over time, I got to enjoy it a lot more as well. So it's also a way of exchanging musical ideas, I guess, which bound us together in the first place.
Yeah, so basically, I like more the American modern composers like Steve Reich or John Cage or Glenn Branca, stuff like that. And Matthias is more the European guy. Yeah. So he's more into stuff like Ligeti or something.
The Penderecki, Ligeti,
yeah.
Did either one of you go to school for music? Or are you guys are you like self-taught?
When I was at university, I took some additional course in musicology, but it was just a few courses. So.
Okay, yeah, it sounded like you guys.
Yeah, and I just learned a lot of music through my sister who studied musicology. So it's mostly just because we're interested in it and we like to delve into it.
Who is your favorite composer? Each one of you. Ooh, is that a hard one? I'm sorry.
It's always a hard one to.
I know. People do the same thing. I'm like, no. It's always fun to ask a musician. As one musician to another, it's always an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, it's always like, what's like the favorite? Like if you ask me for my favorite piece, it's probably maybe Stravinsky, Sacre du Breton.
Oh, that's good.
But that was just because it was such a specific moment in time and such an impactful piece. But if you ask me in a different moment, maybe I would say Beethoven, because he was like the first composer chronologically that I really enjoy. Like all the stuff before that, Bach, Handel, I mean, it's absolutely not for me. So yeah, it really depends on when you ask me.
And what about modern music?
It's
Who are you?
modern.
Who are you inspired by? That's kind of current,
You mean composers or just in general?
just in general.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff. So I love like classical music, metal, rock. I also listen to a lot of, I don't know, even singer-songwriters sometimes. So yeah, a lot of different stuff. Hard to answer.
That is hard to answer. I know. It's almost like there's so much music. It's hard.
Yeah.
So for example, last week I've been listening to some stuff like Death Grips, Hella, Lightning Bolt, stuff like that. But I've also been listening to like more depressive black metal, like Leviathan, Exhauster, stuff like that. So yeah, different things.
Yeah. I finally put my thoughts together when it comes to composers. I always have a thing for Johannes Brahms, and well, that's more of a classical example. But when it comes to composers that I really like in the way how they shaped music, I have to say Olivier Messiaen, French composer of the 20th century, who is a bit weird and all over the place, and he has a thing with birds. He likes to put bird songs into music.
There's a modern composer. There's a modern composer who does the same thing with whale songs. Like he'll have like a small little orchestra, and then you'll like hear whale sounds that have actually been recorded of how they sing to each other. And I was like, that's both cool, and I'm not high enough.
Well, I guess
it's hard.
The influence of Messiaen on other composers, I guess.
Yeah,
so, but they're like how they're in when it comes to 20th century classical composers, there are a lot that are a bit pretentious, you could say, and Messiaen was quite the contrary. He just had a weird way of envisioning music and just put it out there. That's I really like that the character of his.
So let's talk about one of the songs that you released on that album. Let's talk about Obsidious Veins. How did that song come to be?
Well, actually, the title is also a bit like a hidden reference.
Yes.
So there's this band from New York called Ordran with Mick Barr. I don't know if you know him.
I'm gonna look it up though.
But anyway, they have this record that's called OV, just OV, 2 letters. And we sort of made the song title also like Obsidious Veins. It's the same starting letter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's like a hidden reference. But like we started out with something. Let's do something in this vein, and then we started, and then it changed into different things. And
yeah.
But that was kind of the starting point.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because there is actually this kind of story with hidden hidden backgrounds behind it. Yeah. Yeah, what can I add? Usually it starts somewhere and then it develops organically over time. That is like over different recordings, and it was the same with this song because I think we changed it quite a lot.
It doesn't have a lot of repetition, as in stuff repeats. But if it's done the first time, it's not coming back after that.
Okay.
So it's not like an A-B. It's just like A-B-C-D. It just goes on with a different thing all the time.
Yeah, I noticed
what
that.
we were discussing earlier, like room for developing themes and ideas. So what I think is a good example here is the song sort of builds up a lot, but the guitar does just a few chords all the time, and the bass and drums do a lot of different things going on, and that really builds the tension. So that's an example, I think, of what we were talking about earlier, like how can you use the room you have if you only have one guitar and no vocals to develop one idea into this whole big thing, basically. And another thing in this specific song that's maybe, it's in all songs, but we asked the drummer not to use double bass, basically. So he only used one kick drum everywhere. And I think because this is one of the more intense songs on the album, it's really noticeable if you listen closely to the drums. Like that, there's no double bass anywhere, even though it gets quite chaotic and busy.
So you have a quote on your Bandcamp page that I found really interesting by Nietzsche. Could you tell me about if that influenced your music, that whole quote about listening to a theme or melody and isolating it?
Well, I think it's more the reverse. So this is an idea we've had, and then we read it, and we were like, hey, this is what we are sort of thinking. Not saying that we have the same level of ideas as Nietzsche, but we read it and was like, yeah, this is sort of what we unconsciously were thinking. So there's like some types of music that's really easy to listen to and enjoy, but after a while you can get bored of it pretty quickly. And there's like music or art in general where you have to really make an effort to like it, basically. Mm-hmm. But if you make the effort, then it stays with you longer and you get more sort of fulfillment or enjoyment or whatever you would call it out of it. At least that's my experience. And this quote sort of describes that. So if you come across something then that's complex or maybe multi-layered or whatever, try to actually listen to it a bunch of times. Then you will recognize this one melody, they will recognize something like that, etc., 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 until you're used to it and you can't understand why it would ever be weird, basically.
Yeah. Like it's always delving deeper and finding new things about it, and that way, getting more to enjoy out of it, I guess.
Yeah. So we were thinking about this, like why we both like this type of music. And then we came across the quote, says a lot more elegantly what we were thinking. So that's why, we thought it was applicable to music. So
that's an interesting idea. How would you describe your music to somebody who hasn't heard it before?
Depends on the person and the reference. So usually, like if I know somebody likes a certain background of music, then I would say it's like this, but a bit more to that side. But it really depends on the person.
Yeah, I guess I would start with like it's music that starts with like a theoretical background or a theoretical idea, and we try to make it lively and accessible through music. So it's a bit of an art form, though I wouldn't say it if I want to describe our music to some people, because it sounds a bit like, oh, look at us, we're making art. But yeah, it's like both abstract and organic.
But for example, so to one person, I will maybe take King Crimson as a starting point. Mm-hmm. If they are more into like the classic rock type stuff or progressive rock, then I would sort of start with that. If it's somebody who's more into classical music, I would start with a theoretical story about how we write the music. If it's somebody who's more into metal, I would say, wow, it has black metal elements, but it's really dissonant and it's instrumental. So it really depends on your frame of reference, how I would describe it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm not too fond of trying to describe.
You just put it on.
Yeah. I mean, you can try to describe sound, but it's
hard.
Yeah, and you never know what people might get out of it, what they might hear in it. Indeed, depending on their framework of reference. So I tend to just focus on like how the music came into being, and then judge for yourselves. Because I find it hard to draw comparisons to existing or to just generally known bands and artists.
Have you guys been able to find a new drummer, or is finding a drummer hard? I was thinking about that when you told me. I'm sorry.
Well, we were telling earlier about how the Netherlands you get everywhere really quickly. Uh-huh. It's one of the densest populated countries, or maybe the most densely populated country in Europe.
Yeah, in Europe, yes.
But an unfortunate consequence of that is that there aren't too many drummers, because if everybody's living in close together, it's hard to make a lot of noise.
Oh, what? I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. No, but like really, even for like.
Because how do you practice?
Well, practice spaces, or you have to have a big house, or you have to insulate your room a lot, or make.
Or just kiss the neighbor's ass.
For example, I've had when I was in high school, I was playing with drummers, and they would know that during the day their neighbors would be at work, and they made like sort of a schedule: when can I play and when can't I play, stuff like that. But it's really a hassle. So usually So for example, the drummer I've played with the most, he's in like 6 or 7 bands at any given time usually. So it's really a hassle. Just even if it's like more normal music, more middle of the road, it's really hard to find drummers anyway.
Yeah,
so
they're a rare commodity, really. And then, well,
especially a good one,
and especially if you want to make music that's kind of pushing the boundaries a bit, it's even harder to get. So,
well, if it makes you feel any better, we have a hard time finding drummers here too. And I never thought of that being part of why. And we're not as anywhere near densely populated. I mean, like LA and New York, places like that. But the city that I live in is considered a quote unquote big city, but it has all these suburban areas where there's a little bit more spacing. But it's a common thing I hear. It's very hard to find a good drummer. And I never thought about that maybe being why. You just enlightened me. Well, I have a couple friends that are drummers and they always get mad at us because we're like, fucking drummers, man. And he's like, you aren't very nice. And we're like, well, they're hard to find. And sometimes when we find it, you don't want it.
Yeah, and we just keep searching. And I think we've asked like 7 or 8 drummers by now. But
oh my goodness,
too busy or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And for now, indeed, we might work a bit more with Michiel van der Plicht to lay down their album. He's willing to do a few shows if it comes up. So that helps a bit. But then, we do want a drummer to be part of the lineup and to actually be a 3-piece and create music together.
Well, this is going to be out in like 2 weeks. Do you want to say what kind of drummer you're looking for right now? Kind of throw that in there for you.
Preferably one that lives in the Netherlands.
Obviously, yes.
Your audience is across the Atlantic as well.
Please don't be in America.
That would be helpful, I guess. But we don't have to schedule like 7-hour flights over the Atlantic to rehearse.
No, but basically, just listen to the music, and if you think that you have something to add to it or that you like it or whatever, like it doesn't have to be exactly the style we have on the record. So we want really somebody who can add his own flavor to it, his own sort of thing. So we also asked Michiel van der Plicht when we asked him to play on the album, like we wrote drum parts, but if you want to change anything, there are a few exceptions. A few parts that have to be specific, but like in general, if you want to change stuff, add stuff, be our guest, just try it, And he did that quite a lot as well, which really, helped the album get to, basically a next level. Because I have my own tendencies, maybe unconscious in my guitar playing, but also when I write drums. But Diaz is the same, and together you have some sort of perspective that you get stuck in at some point. And then when there's a third person who has his own ideas, his own perspective, that's always welcome. So basically for a drummer, if it's just somebody who likes the music and thinks he has something to, or she has something interesting to add, then we're willing to see if it works or not. So.
Okay. So let's talk about the other song you sent, which is the one I really, really liked. And I feel like it's such a long name. I'm going to fuck it up just because it's a long name. Monolithic Structures. Let's talk about that track.
Yeah.
I really liked the overall vibe of that. Can you tell me a little bit about the writing process behind that?
Well, incidentally, the opening part of Monolithic Structures is the very first thing we ever wrote for Prospectors back in 2015. That's kind of lays bare where we came from, like this weird trade-off with notes between the guitar and the bass. It has a nice historic vibe to it in that sense. But from there, I think because we only kept the first part of it and then we broke it down and created an entirely different song out of the rubble.
So it's like you constructed, then deconstructed, and then constructed again.
Yes, and it's very audible in that song, at least. Well, maybe for us and for the people that heard the first first attempts at writing music for Prospectors. But the intro of it still is reminiscent of that. So that's a part I really like. And I think we worked with tonal clusters in the song later on.
I'm sorry, you worked with what?
Tonal clusters, like clusters of notes, like A.
That are right next together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So usually when you play a chord, you play notes that are a little bit apart, so you get like sort of a nice harmony. When you play a tonal cluster, it's basically right next to each other, so it sounds really dissonant.
Yeah, just like the keyboard smash on a piano or something like that. That's basically the starting point, but then try to make it musical or enjoyable or giving it some kind of fun with it. That's what we started with.
Well, what I think for me is the most interesting part about the song is that it starts really specific and regimented. Like you can't really change any note in time or whatever, because then the entire thing will sort of fall apart. And then it sort of moves at the end to a really free, almost jamming type stuff with just melodies and bass lines. And I think that's the most interesting part of the song, that there's sort of this transformation halfway through the song. Yeah. So that to me that's the most interesting part about the song.
It's also just like, especially near the end, there's so much going on with just 3 instruments. I think
that was exactly what I was going to say, is especially with that track. And there was another track, but I can't remember which one it was, because I listened to everything on your Bandcamp. It didn't just sound like 3 instruments. It was very, very full. How did you pull that off?
Well, that's the magic, I guess, of the room every single instrument has. At least when it comes to bass lines, for instance, especially in Monolithic Structures, I don't think there's a lot of repetition there. It's just moving through melodic bass lines actually. And every instrument has its own spaces to shine, basically. So I don't know how that should work, because it's basically only 3 instruments all the time. But here it's more apparent, I think, than in other songs.
I think it's a few other elements as well. So one thing that's important is like the bass sound. We really try to make it really clear what the bass was doing. So in a lot of metal music, it's just basically frequency filler, as I would usually call it. So you hear that something's going on and like low frequencies are covered, but you don't really hear what's actually happening. So the fact that you can hear that the bass is doing something clearly, that's like an added thing. We also tried sort of to do, it's basically a sort of tricks, if there's like a sort of empty part melodically or with the drums, we would try to add big crashes just to fill it up. If hey, there's low bass line here, then you can sort of do a bit less with other instruments. So we really tried with tricks like that to look at the thing as a whole as well.
It's trading off in a sense. Really making space for the other instruments, and maybe that is why it gets dynamic, because they kind of flow through each other as well. In the sense that when the guitar backs up a bit, there's room for bass, and when the bass backs up a bit, there's room for maybe drums or guitar. So it's like how do you call it? Like a Brechtwerk.
Yeah. Great.
I like how you describe not only the notes and the sound, but the absence of sound and how that leaves room for other sound. It brings you back definitely to like classical composers and early experimental composers. So this is something I like to ask. What advice would you give to somebody who wanted to write and play this genre of music?
Well, I would say just write something and then try to keep listening to it and see how you want to change it. Like, because it's not what you would usually do. Like if you want to learn a regular singer-songwriter type song, like more poppy, then there's really like specific structures or chord progressions that you can learn that work or don't work. Well, this type of music, the point is sort of to do something that is not set in stone, basically. So the only way to learn to do that is just to do it and then see what you like about it or you don't like and change it or start again. But to me, that's the only way to sort of get good at it.
Yeah, and don't try to be too hard to be original like that. I think it's sometimes better to just vibe with whatever you feel is good and just try it out, and you can always later deconstruct. I think I'll agree with you on that. It's constructing and deconstructing where you get to the core of what you try to achieve through music or through experimental music, and experiment with that, of course.
Yeah, and try to limit yourself a bit. So especially if you're more
That's a good one. Yeah,
if you're more into progressive type music, like a lot of bands and artists tend to just add keywords and add layers of stuff, and like that doesn't make the basic idea better. It maybe just obscures what's going on. So try to have a good idea first, and then if that works, you can add stuff later. But start with a good idea and don't think, okay, I'm going to start with 10 layers of keywords and stuff, and then see if it's nice enough, because that's just noise filling it up. Basically.
Yeah, right. This is the minimalist speaking, and he is entirely right.
Yeah, he is very right. I think that's true with any type of music. Don't overthink it. Don't do too much. Even with a singer-songwriter, just start with the lyrics and the guitar, and you kind of go from there.
Yeah. It's also not start with like an endpoint already inside. Just try to move there naturally. Don't try to be too hard to sound experiment or to just stop everything with tons of layers. Just start from the core or try to find it at first.
Ooh, I like that. Start from the core, try to find it. Where can my listeners find your music?
Prospectorsnl.bandcamp.com. Okay. That's the only place. So
is that the only place you are?
We're also on Spotify, stuff like that, but we we prefer Bandcamp because it's actually just aimed at the relation between a band and the listener. Like with Spotify and all these other platforms, there's so much other stuff going on. Like that's. No, I know. If you want to listen to music, go to the source and don't go to.
Yeah, exactly.
Can people find you on Facebook?
There it's also Prospectors.nl, so facebook.com/Prospectors.nl.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. If it was Wouter sitting here, who's the PR guy, he would definitely have like 3 or 4 talking points ready. Mm-hmm. So
we're not like that. No. People can find the music, and if they like it, it's great. That's basically it. We will make it no matter what anyway. So it's also our enjoyment to put our time and money into creating this music. If there's people out there that really resonate with it, that's cool. And
thus it's really about trying new things with this band. So it doesn't have to be, as Matthias said, like overly out there or whatever, but just to try it in a different way. So for example, we're writing songs now, and we have one where I'm just writing stuff on a piece of paper and sending it in the mail, like physically, to Matthias. And then he does something with it and he sends a piece of mail back. So we've never actually played this together or anything or programmed it, but just on a piece of paper, sending something back and forth. Yeah. Like it's ridiculous. It doesn't do anything, but it does something in the end. But just as a way to try something new. And okay, I've written 10 songs in my life, and now I'm going to do the 11th. I'm going to do it differently. Basically, sort of that state of mind. So
really making the process part of the song in that sense. We don't know what's going to come out of that. But when we started, we also didn't know how the songs would develop. I think that always keeps it exciting to work on Prospectors and to just reshape songs constantly. we don't know precisely how it's gonna pan out. That's something that really that keeps us going here.
I love that. I wonder if I could try that with someone here.
I started off with writing like how many words? 8, like 8 rhythms, like 1 or 2 bars, just 8 rhythms on a piece of paper, and then without notes or anything, just the rhythm. That's basically how it started. So
yeah, and it's always exciting because you never know what will be the follow up.
Has he sent you anything that you were like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
The last, but the thing is, and it's always it's really open to interpretation. The last memory I received was a whole bunch of numbers. So, well, I know what I can do with numbers, but there is obviously no context at all. And
right.
Okay, let's see where to start. So yeah, that's more interesting because it is interesting. It tickles your imagination, and well, let's see what we can make out of it. And he obviously doesn't know what I will send back. I haven't replied yet, but
and has he replied with anything to you that made you be like, oh, he threw me a curveball?
Well, he's a bit lazy.
Oh.
I have to admit.
You're the procrastinator in the group.
Yes, very much, yes. It's very
There's
true.
one in every band.
Yeah.
There is.
And this is a 2-person band, so
yeah.
So you're gonna have to get it together, I think is what we're saying. Just a little
bit.
Yeah.
I think for me the process is more not I have all this information now, I have to put it together, and just for some reason it will work out. So I think something really interesting will come out of the letters.
I end up like waiting until almost the last minute to write something, and I seem to do better that way. If like there's just a little bit of pressure, not too much, not enough to give me a panic attack, but just enough to be like, you have a deadline. And it works the same with the podcast. So that's interesting. And then my, Brent, who's not here, he's very different. He's like, everything's scheduled and he's always on top of it. And I'm the one over here who's like squirrel, and just something shiny caught my attention. Sorry. I don't know how he puts up with me.
So usually I plan stuff and I just tell Matthias you have to be there at this time, and then shows up.
Yeah. And I'm indeed the deadline worker. I get a lot of stuff done at the point that it needs to be done, but
exactly,
it's a hassle to get there. So this dynamic you described, yes, this is very relatable.
What's sad is that I'm the boss. I'm the one who started the show. I'm the one who brought him on, and I'm the one who's like, I'm so stressed out at the very end because it's too, like, there's a lot, and I just, a little bit of pressure to the coal turns it into a diamond. That's what I like to say, but I know he's sitting over there like, just get it the fuck it done. I need you to finish.
And it's good to have this kind of pressure. Yes, it helped me through some I think some pre-productions we did over the years. Yeah. As long as this dynamic keeps working, and it does work really well, I'd say.
I would say you guys have been playing together for a very long while.
Yeah.
Thank you for making time on a Saturday.
Thank you so much for joining me today for episode 89, and I would like to thank the Prospectors again for being on the show. Make sure you click those links below to show them some love. Make sure you are purchasing their tracks from Bandcamp and following them on Facebook. Also, please keep downloading the episodes for us. It really does make a difference over time. We are seeing those small bumps, and we really appreciate your help. For those of you who don't know, I was interviewed for DarkStereo. So if you haven't read that interview yet, the link is in the description section below. That is all for this week. Remember to get out there and make some noise.